Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from Anonymous Bride from the Wedding Drama subreddit. Before we do get into it, there's mentions of homophobia within the story, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description, along the timeline below. Thank you. The story is titled, Mother Asked to Stay in Our Wedding Suite. LGBT couple. My 35 female bride and I, 41 female, planned an elopement in Vegas initially. But of course everyone wanted to come. So we paid to have a micro wedding, under 10 people, for our most special guests to come. Everyone is responsible for their own rooms, arrangements, flights, etc. We posted on our website, which no one has read. We planned a week out in Vegas, the first few days being just for me and my future wife. However, my dear mother doesn't want to fly out to Vegas just for a wedding. She's never been to Vegas, so she wants to make a whole trip out of it. To me, this is not a family trip. Although my family will be there, it is a trip for me and my wife. It is our wedding after all. A few months ago, my mother suggested to stay with us in our hotel suite for the first few nights, the three of us. I shot that idea down pretty hard and explained there won't be enough room. It's a wedding suite, so one king bed, one thin couch. I was definitely surprised she had the wherewithal to even. Weather has been bad for my family, and my bride's family in their respective cities. Last night my mother called to tell me she may not make it a few days before the wedding. She's thinking of cancelling her hotel room for those 3 days because she doesn't want to lose her money. For me, that's not a huge loss. We wanted the time beforehand together anyway. I continued listening and waiting for her to ask if she can stay in our room. She said, "So, if I cancel my hotel room but end up going out that day anyway, can I stay with you in your room?" I replied, "Mum, there's only one bed and the couch is way too thin." She says I'll sleep on the floor. I said, "Mum, no, it's not appropriate to be in my wedding suite during the wedding week." She said, "I don't understand. You guys live together. What's the difference?" I said it's not appropriate. She said, "You've made it very clear that you don't want me there those days before the wedding." Opie continues, "That part is kinda true. We wanted to be alone, but she wanted to come sooner." I said, "Mum, you already know I've bought tickets to events that include you, and we have brunch plans on this day as well. I'd rather you be safe, and if you have to fly out a couple of days later, then it's fine." She said, "I'm worried I'm going to miss your wedding, and then you'll be mad I missed your wedding." Because she told me 20 years ago that she wouldn't attend my wedding if I married a woman. She's come a long way since then, and she loves my partner. I never thought my own mother would be so enmeshed with me that she would suggest to stay in my room with me. Why? I don't even understand why you would want to stay with your daughter and a new wife in her wedding suite. I can't believe I had to tell the woman who raised me, the woman who taught me manners and respect. I can't believe I had to explain to her why she can't stay in the room with me and my partner. I feel so guilty. Probably because I've been told to feel guilty as a child, and I know I'm making the right decision. Never expected my own mother to be a monster-in-law. The first commenter says to OP, "You handled it well." I would have said, "Mum, what do you think a couple that's getting married will want to do together when they're in their wedding suite? Does she not realize how inappropriate that is?" OP says, "I don't get it. Usually my mother knows how to act in specific situations as these, but as the years go on, I have to remind her. We were recently at a friend of hers house and she had her damn tennis shoes on the couch. I had to get her attention and tell her to get her feet off the couch. She said, 'I love how the roles have changed. You're the mother and I'm the daughter.' And I said, 'I wasn't raised to put my feet on someone's couch.'" That commenter also replied saying, "How old is your mum? Has she been forgetful lately?" Opie says 60, recently retired, 2 years, probably bored, has no boyfriend or husband, probably lives vicariously through me. I don't see any signs of dementia yet, but her sleep habits are trash. Another commenter says, "Has she seemed clueless about this before? That you're a couple, partners, soon to be married, with all that means. It's beyond me. She wants to treat your honeymoon like a girl's trip or sleepover." Opie says, very much like a girls' trip, coming out 3 days ahead along with us. I had to keep that a secret because I knew we wanted some time together. If I told her, she'd change her flight. So of course, because she wanted more time out there, I fessed up and she said we were going out a few days ahead of time. That's the first time she asked about sharing a hotel room. It's just messed up that I have to have therapy and boundaries just to have relationships with family or other people properly. Someone says, does OP's mother have financial issues for the reason not to spend on her own room or other things? OP says, nope, quite enriched, retired with pension. Just a matter of convenience, I hope. Hopefully not narcissism. Commenter says to OP, I just have to stick my nose in just a bit for a second. If you're in your 40s, I assume your mum is in her 60s. Is it possible that she's having some early onset dementia? I ask because this is my age group and my greatest fear. I have 20 plus years with elder care and specialize in dementia care. I will kill myself before burdening my children that way, but that is another story. I would just watch closely and maybe have a chat with your dad and ask pointed questions. It may be time for some testing. There are medications that help delay decay and work much better the earlier the diagnosis is made. Congrats and happy wedding, happy life. Opie says, I take your message with lots of consideration. What you're saying could possibly be true. Her mother is living into her 90s with a bad case of Alzheimer's. It's so bad I wish she would leave this earth already. Horrible disease. I'm upset at my mum due to her sleeping habits. She's retired now, so stays up to almost 7 a.m. This is horrible for the brain and Alzheimer's. I'll be on the lookout for dementia signs in the future, but sadly, I think this is an issue of being way too close, enmeshment, to no boundaries. A commenter says, don't take this the wrong way, but your mum seems very self-centered, or at least very cheap. You sure you guys wouldn't rather elope? Because from the way your mother is being so pushy, something tells me she might fake an emergency so that you guys have to let her stay with you. Or better yet, she's waiting for you guys to say you'll pay for all of her travel expenses. Opie says, fake an emergency, I'm preparing for. Staying in my hotel room? Still no. She has plenty of money. She says often. I'm sure she can handle it. Another commenter says, given this information, I suspect your mum is probably lonely, bored, overly enmeshed with you. Are you an only child? Lacking in confidence and feels left out and isolated now you're an adult with your own life and nuclear family. I think it's probably less about her not totally getting the hey, we're newlyweds and planning on having lots of enthusiastic newlywed sex part, and more that she is nervous about traveling and staying alone and wants the comfort and security of staying with you. My mum is very similar. She finds it incredibly difficult to respect appropriate boundaries with her now adult children, and the roles are reversed such that I, as her oldest daughter, am expected to be a primary source of emotional support. Either way, you're handling this totally correctly. Continue to maintain that boundary and make sure the hotel knows that no one, other than you and your soon-to-be wife, should have a key to your room. Opie says, so I'm doing a lot of reading lately, and I'm involved in therapy because of my mother. I'm seeing a lot of enmeshment. Oldest and only daughter, responsible for her feelings, pretty much the same as you. Still difficult to handle. Really have to stick with boundaries on this one. I think she's feeling a little excluded, but not because of anything we did. She just needs to check herself in these new emotions. Commenter says, has she always parentified you? Opie says, yes. When my brothers were born, I was 15. Instant built-in babysitter. They didn't even hide it. Joked about it right in front of me. And clearly there seems to be two angles at this about parentification and, a clear pattern of enmeshment, or potentially some early signs of cognitive decline, which absolutely might be the case as well. I mean, it could literally go either way. I kind of feel like the enmeshment part more, treating the wedding and honeymoon like a girl's trip. It kind of felt to me like she doesn't see her daughter as a separate adult with her own adult responsibilities and boundaries. And we see this often in these stories, and I think it's incredibly hard when everything like this has been normalized for you to break those patterns, especially when mum is using guilt as like a go-to tool. It's so wild that she can ask to staying their honeymoon suite. Imagine saying that to someone. I just find that wild. But of course, Opie just needs to stick to their guns on this one. But Opie came in with an update and says, well, I'm sure you're all wondering how the wedding went and where Mum slept. If you're looking for the original post, you may find it here, and then shares that link. I feel my story has taken a sad turn. My relationship with my mother is worse than I thought. I'll get to the story now. We both arrived at the airport around the same time from our different flights, and my mum had a pain that affected her walking. Not great, since we're going to be walking around in Vegas. I offer Advil multiple times and she rejects it. I believe she may have taken it one time from me. We arrived at her hotel first. I assume she never cancelled a reservation, lol, because she had a reservation. We dropped our bags at her room and got on with our plans. Later that night, my wife and I checked into our suite alone. The first fight with my mum was the next day in my suite. She had interrupted me several times that day, one of our many problems, then pointed out how I interrupted her. At one point, I tried once again to begin my story. She interrupts me and I exasperate. Do you know how many times I've tried to tell this story today and you've interrupted me? Then I said, do you do this to everyone or just me? And she put her middle finger in my face, screaming at me, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. My wife had to intervene and say, whoa, that was not necessary. My wife later told me she almost threw her out of our room. I stuck to my I statements and I said, when you cut me off, it makes me feel like what I'm saying isn't important. I should have addressed the fuck yous, but it was too heated at the time. I tried to de-escalate and will address this at a later time. At this point, I'm realizing my mother is immature, emotionally immature. Whatever feeling she's feeling when I confront her, genuinely by the way, asking her if she truly does this to everyone or just me, she can't handle it and freaks out on me like a high schooler. It's sad. I'm devastated actually. To have this insight on my wedding getaway caused me a lot of pain. I've looked for answers for a long time. I thought maybe she's narcissistic. My therapist mentioned possible BPD, but I'm looking into emotional immaturity at the moment. I've learned it can coincide with narcissism or BPD, so I can't necessarily write those off. Then the night after that, the rest of the party starts to arrive. My wife's best friend arrives very late and has a reservation in our hotel. She calls my wife to let her know her room isn't ready and they're looking for a room for her. My mother pipes in. She didn't call my name. She didn't call in advance to let them know. I realize very quickly this sounds like she's putting the responsibility on me, and the friend's problem is now suddenly my problem. Mum, I don't know if she called in advance. She's responsible for her own travel and her own hotel room, I say. She responds, well, are you going to let her stay in your hotel room if she doesn't get a room? I reply, no, she's not staying in my room. There are plenty of hotel rooms in Vegas. She will get a room tonight. She's a big girl, Mum. That's fucked up, she says. A good friend of mine also came on the trip with a new partner. Stayed in a different hotel. Not a problem. She didn't arrive to my hotel suite until we were about to be picked up from the limo. She gets along with my mum really well. The minute we were in the limo, the two of them were attached at the hip and I feel like I barely spoke to my friend. I have video and pictures specifically of them ignoring everyone else in the limo, speaking only to each other. I took them because I felt the party was kind of separated in the limo. The wedding went off without a hitch. It was absolutely beautiful and I was so incredibly happy. Crying tears of joy, I hope, and not tears of how much pain I was in from the emotional week I already had. The next morning, my friend once again ignored me to have breakfast with her partner. We discussed in advance the time everyone was getting together and scheduled her reservation for 30 minutes before. She sat at a different table and ate alone with her partner. We got a table next to her with 2 extra chairs, but she did not join us. She later asked my wife if I was upset, and my wife responds, she thought she'd spend a little time with you on the trip. I try to let the feeling go. I'm just devastated by the people I'm allowing in my life at the moment. I'm really considering evaluating these relationships. Later in my hotel room that night, I receive a text from my good friend saying that she's taken off a little early from the trip, blames it on work. I really don't know why she even came. Just for the vacation, I guess. I barely said 2 words to her in the 5 hours I saw her. Sad, sad, sad. I'm so sad about all of this. Other than the drama, I really enjoyed the trip. Had a lovely time with my wife and very happy with our hair and makeup and our vendors and ceremony. It was all so beautiful, and I'm thankful they came to see us get married. I definitely had some insecurities before going on this trip, and it's a reality I have issues with some people in my life. I'm currently in therapy and had a discussion with my therapist about this. I'm certainly not going no contact or ghosting anyone after this, but discussions need to be had, and therapy needs to continue. Books need to be read, and practice needs to be put in place. All I can do is commit myself to a healthy life in all ways, practice radical acceptance. If anyone has any advice on how to let go of pain, accepting it, or trying to be less emotional about it, I'm open ears. Thanks for listening. Someone says to OP after this, my wedding also led to a similar interaction with my mother, where I had to state that I don't let anyone talk to me with that kind of language. Of course, me drawing that boundary was seen as an attack. Shortly after I found the book, The Emotionally Immature Parent, I realized I have two actually. I'm glad it didn't ruin your ceremony, and I'm also glad you already have a therapist. OP says yes. Thanks, yes, I actually downloaded it a couple of weeks ago on the advice of my therapist and was able to get pretty deep into it, even with the wedding activities going on. I can't wait to read it again. Another commenter says, please resolve that no one, not even, and especially not your flesh oven, gets to scream in your face, flesh oven, flip you off and yell F you, and that anyone who does that so instantly loses all access to you. That's what boundaries are for. OP says, yeah, I can't let that go. It needs to be addressed. Another commenter says it sounds like your friend was trying to give you space because it was your wedding. A lot of brides and grooms are pressured to spend every single second of their wedding or trips on their guests. Maybe she was trying to do you a favor by letting you enjoy your time and not feel pressured. OP says true, but there was another time we vacationed together and she kind of did her own thing. I like to consider the different perspectives though, and I appreciate this perspective. A lot of others have said the same. Another commenter says, yeah, I wouldn't take it personally. I'm kind of like your friend. I need a lot of time off on my own, especially if it's with a lot of other people. Hell, I need time off on my own even if it's a small group. Opie says, I'm introverted in that way too, but I guess the people pleaser in me just continues to spend time with them until I can finally get some alone time. I just thought it was really rude. I feel rude if I did that to someone else. Like I said, maybe that's a people pleasing move, but it feels lack of etiquette and manners. I felt up and down throughout that story for OP. You know, the mum screaming fuck you and flipping off her daughter. Holy moly, emotional immaturity. And I'm not saying that there is nothing cognitive there because I just don't know. But it feels like the way OP talks about their past, etc. It just feels like that mum is just emotionally immature. It's the enmeshment that we was talking about, etc. The mum trying to get OP to be responsible for other people's hotel rooms. It's just madness. And I didn't really know what was going on with a friend in that moment till some of the comments mentioned maybe she was just trying to give her space. And, you know, that does make some sense to me. There was a little part of me, and, you know, this is very Reddit brain thinking, is the mum and the friend in the back of the limo and, like, immediately becoming best buddies and excluding everyone else. And, you know, given the pattern of the mum's emotional manipulation in the past, it had me thinking a bit. The fact that the friend suddenly left early, blaming work, right after spending all that time with her mum instead of OP. You know, it felt a bit poisonous. From the mum, that is. And that just wasn't in OP's head. OP had video evidence of what was going on. It just felt like that mum was going to bring drama into your life in some way, shape, or form. But as I said, I don't know. That was just something that popped into my head. But let's look at some positives for OP that, you know, she's married now, she's in therapy, she's reading about the emotional immaturity and working on the boundaries instead of just accepting the toxic behavior. There has to be that first step for everyone to recognize unhealthy relationships. And it's bloody difficult. Like I said before, when things are normalized like this, that's your normal. You don't know any different. Everyone from the outside, like I always say, I'm sat behind a microphone, I'm reading a very small part of your life, but can see it. You can't. You're stuck in it. You're being manipulated to think otherwise. But they mentioned a book about emotionally immature parents. I'm not sure if it's the same one. I listened to it in an ebook store of some sort. Pick your own, you know. It's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and it's pretty eye-opening. It's got to be said. I've heard some of you have listened to it as well and got some insights for yourself, which I think is amazing. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's have one more story. This one's from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from FireTrousers22, and it says, am I the arsehole for kicking my mother-in-law out of my wife's baby shower? I, 28 male, and my wife, 29 female, are expecting our first baby in March and are very excited. But there have been some complications. My wife has been struggling with constant nausea and pain, which has led her to be basically bedridden the past few months. Her nausea has been a bit better lately, so my mum and sister decided to throw us a baby shower. I know that dad isn't typically invited, but that's just how the family does it. Well, my mother-in-law is not happy about any of it. She's upset that my family is throwing the shower, even though she never offered to help, and upset that men were invited. That I could see from her point of view and put aside for the sake of reducing drama. What I couldn't forgive was her comments towards my wife the second she came through the door. She claimed that my wife wasn't really that sick and was just doing it to get out of work, when in reality, my wife was working online literally from the bathroom in between vomiting. The kicker was when my sweet sister tried to lighten the mood saying, well, at least wife is feeling better now. And mother-in-law said, I bet she's just here to get our money and attention, then not show her face for another month. I was livid. I told her she needed to shut up or leave because this day was about supporting my wife and our baby, so she needed to do that. That ticked her off, so she screamed at my wife and I for being ungrateful until my wife cried. So I told her to just fuck off already. She finally listened and left, and the rest of the party went somewhat smoothly. However, some family members said I should have just ignored her, and my wife doesn't want to talk about it. So was I in the wrong? And of course, absolutely not the arsehole in this situation for protecting your wife, your pregnant wife. Accusing her of faking illness for attention and money, then screaming at her until she cried at her own baby shower. That's a sad scene. And quite frankly, it's simply abusive. And those telling you to just ignore it are enabling that. You did exactly what everyone says you should do in these situations, and that's protect your wife, which is exactly what you did. Pure Philosopher says not the arsehole. You defended your heavily pregnant and sick wife from a nasty, unsympathetic mother. If mother-in-law wanted a baby shower done her way, she could have thrown one herself. What was she accusing you of being ungrateful for? She didn't contribute to the shower, and it sounds like she hasn't done much apart from criticize and throw screaming tantrums. I doubt this is the first time mother-in-law has behaved like this, and she knows she can get away with it if people just ignore her. She needed to be called out. Hope your wife feels better soon, and congratulations on the baby. Extinct Diplodocus says not the arsehole, you did the right thing. Mother-in-law was seriously slandering her own daughter, your wife. Your wife was just too sick to give mother-in-law the pushback she deserved, so you stepped in to defend your wife. Those who said ignore her are asking you to stand idle while letting your wife get maligned. You really don't want to allow any possible doubt about maybe you're in tacit agreement with those insults. I do hope their reactions were temporary insanity rather than indicating that they declined to defend their own spouse. I do wonder if wife was just too sick or it's because she's seen this behavior in the past, like we was just discussing in the last story. She may not currently have the tools to protect herself from someone like mother-in-law who's normalized this kind of behavior. Again, I don't know the full ins and outs, but it certainly feels that way to me. But let me know what you think of this story. What would you do in that situation? Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the story, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.